4 young lives, gone in a way no one could have imagined. No forced entry, no warning, and what investigators found inside that house still haunts them to this day. But one small mistake exposed the killer, and the truth can no longer be. But before we dive into this story, if you believe in fighting for justice, this is your moment to stand with us. We've just crossed 1,000 subscribers because of your incredible support, and now we're aiming for 2,000, then 5,000, and yes, 10,000. So go ahead, leave your digital fingerprint on that subscribe button, because wherever you are when this vision becomes reality, I'll send my gratitude straight to you. Let's keep building this justice-driven community together. Kaylee Goncalves, Madison Mogan, Xana Kernodle, Ethan Chapin. 4 names that no longer belong just to a college campus or a small Idaho town. They're etched into the soul of a nation. These weren't just victims. They were daughters, friends, siblings, and dreamers. And on November 13th, 2022, everything changed. 1122 King Road, Moscow, Idaho, a house full of light, laughter, and life, suddenly became something else. A scene of unthinkable horror, the kind of crime that doesn't just break a family, it stuns an entire town into silence. And it leaves a country asking, how could something like this happen, and why? When officers arrived at the home that morning, they had no idea what awaited them inside. What they found would change their lives forever. On the 2nd floor, they discovered Xana Kernodle, 20 years old, described by those who knew her as creative, driven, and full of heart. She was found on the floor of her room, surrounded by evidence of a brutal, desperate fight for survival. More than 50 stab wounds, defensive cuts across her hands, and signs of a struggle so violent. One officer wrote, "I couldn't comprehend what I was looking at." Nearby was her boyfriend, Ethan Chapin, kind, athletic, the type of soul who brought warmth into every room. He was still in bed, a blanket pulled over him, but beneath it, deep lacerations to his legs. The final blow, a fatal slash to the neck. They had been inseparable in life. In death, they remained side by side. Upstairs, on the 3rd floor, the scene was no less haunting. Madison Mogan and Kaylee Goncalves, lifelong best friends. They'd grown up together, laughed together, lived together, and on that night, they died together. Inside Maddie's room, officers discovered both young women, side by side. Maddie, known for her quick wit, her ability to make people laugh even on their worst days, had suffered deep wounds to her chest, her liver, and her left lung. Kaylee, a bold, determined spirit, remembered by her family as the ultimate go-getter, had injuries so extreme, she was described as unrecognizable. The pain inflicted was not just brutal, it was personal. Former Moscow Police Chief James Fry later said, "To me, a knife is more personal. This wasn't random. It wasn't impulsive. It was rage, masked in silence." And yet, through all the darkness, one question burned brighter than the rest. Who could have done this, and how did they vanish without a trace? For weeks, there were no arrests, no public suspects, no murder weapon. But behind the scenes, investigators were piecing together a silent trail, one the killer never thought would be followed. It started with a knife sheath, left behind, tucked beside one of the victims. A single piece of evidence, and on it, a trace of DNA. That profile would lead them to a name. A man living just across the state line. A PhD student in criminology at Washington State University. His name, Bryan Kohberger. He wasn't a drifter. He wasn't unknown. He studied crime. He studied killers. And now, he was becoming one. Investigators tracked his cell phone movements, data showing his phone near the victim's home on multiple occasions before the murders. They tracked a white Hyundai Elantra, captured on surveillance, seen speeding away from the area in the early hours of November 13th. They connected the DNA on the knife sheath, to DNA found in Kohberger's family home, nearly 2,500 miles away in Pennsylvania. It was only a matter of time. The killer had studied the system, but in the end, it was the system that caught him. December 30th, 2022, the silence finally broke. In a quiet Pennsylvania neighborhood, over 2,000 miles from the crime scene, Bryan Kohberger was arrested. Extradited back to Idaho, he stood before the court, cold, emotionless, charged with 4 counts of first-degree murder and 1 count of felony burglary. As the evidence mounted, the choice became clear. Rather than face a trial and the possibility of death, Kohberger entered a guilty plea. 4 consecutive life sentences. No parole, no appeal, no escape. Just a number now. Inmate 163214, confined to a concrete cell in a state that will never forget what he did. But while the killer fades into shadows, the victims do not. Kaylee, Maddie, Xana, and Ethan. Their names still echo through the University of Idaho, through their families, through us all. At the center of campus, where pain once cast its longest shadow, now stands a place of peace. A garden, a memorial, a permanent space for healing. The Vandal Healing Garden, built not just to remember what was lost, but to reflect the lives that were lived. It's open, it's quiet, and it carries with it the stories of 4 young people whose light was stolen too soon. But for those who can't walk through that garden in person, the families offer a different kind of memorial. Kindness, a small act, a generous word, a moment of compassion. That's how we keep their memory alive. That's how we ensure that Kaylee Goncalves, Madison Mogan, Xana Kernodle, and Ethan Chapin are never reduced to just a headline or just a case number. Say their names, share their stories, and carry their light. Even in the darkest moments, it still shines. The case is closed, but the conversation isn't. As more investigative documents continue to be released, over 300 pages and counting, each one reveals more than just evidence. They reveal missed warnings, behavioral patterns, the red flags that may have been overlooked. And they force us to ask, could this have been prevented? In a world where monsters sometimes hide in classrooms, how do we see them before it's too late? If you made it this far, you're part of something bigger. We tell these stories not to glorify tragedy, but to honor the names behind the headlines. If this story moved you, share it, say their names, and be the kind of light this world still needs. We fight for truth. We remember the victims, and together we never let them be forgotten.